In this lecture, we will look at a very simple example, a very dummy example, not an actual feature, to give you just a spark of an idea that this can also be done. So since we are using Supabase, and Supabase comes with a lot of cool products like authentication database and so on, but also edge functions, this is something that you can deploy it later on, an edge function, what we are going to build. So this is a little bit technical. You need to be a developer to follow along, but let's carry on. And if you cannot follow this lecture, it's absolutely fine. So we're gonna make a directory here. Let's call it Samantha backend, for example. So we can have our own backend running like this. I'm gonna follow a few tips and tricks of the vibe coding that I use on a daily basis, and then we take it from there. So what I do is usually I start from README first. I create a README, I put it here, and I leave all the idea that I have about that particular feature I'm building in here. So we're not going to overcomplicate it. We're going to just create like an email signature thing service. I know this would be much easier if we, like, this is not the solution for the problem we're doing. It's just demoing vibe coding. So can you please write and README for this microservice? It's a Node.js service that I'm using with a Bun and Fastify endpoints, and it has multiple backend services for this voice AI agent that's called Samantha, and it is closely integrated with n8n and Vapi. Create a README file, a detailed README file that explains this, that it provides a lot of logic backend and retrieval logic and so on for this Samantha backend. This was just an example of the README generation, but in more detail in my course, you can find out how I do this, why do I do READMEs, and actually I build features in that course where you'll see how powerful it is to have these README files in the first place, and then go on and then integrate things out there. So this was just an example that I create READMEs first, and then from the README I put it back there. Another small thing I do is I'll quickly spin off. Can you please quickly spin off a Bun project with Fastify REST API? Just put an hello world endpoint there. So right now it's spinning off. So what I do, another trick I do is like I put a temp folder here, also like that, and then I create like a temp folder like this here, and then I create like a, for example, a feature1.md, let's say whatever that feature1 is. I bring a snippet like whatever snippet.js or .ts, I put the code there, and I create a little bit context there for the sake of doing it this way. Can you please implement this feature called feature1? You can read all the content that is given in feature1.md, and also there is a code snippet that you can get some more context from abc.js. So when I do this, obviously these files won't be like this. I will reference them so that cursor can find it. So it would be the case here. The @ won't work in the first place, but once you add it, then it works. This way, then cursor gets a very good context of the entire workflow. So this prompting technique is a good way I found out that it makes sense. And then after this, once the feature is built, I don't quickly test it on the browser, if it's a browser or a full stack or something, or in Postman. I keep asking it again and again, double check, once, 2, 3 times. I ask and the double check, it finds it problems by itself. Then I go to the git diff here. This is not a git repository right now, but if it would be, then I see the git diff. And then I realize that, okay, this makes sense that it has implemented. And then I ask questions in places where it may have made a mistake. So that way, I believe is a good way to do vibe coding. Let's see what happens here. There's a small bug in cursor that it sometimes gets stuck. Then you have to kind of like type continue so that it gets unstuck. Okay. What I want to do with this service here, not a temp, but this service that we're gonna spin off now, is that I will do some sort of small logic here. We'll use ngrok to reverse proxy it, and then have an n8n workflow come to my laptop, do some processing, go back to n8n, and something like that. Okay, so I think this is running. Let me see if there is a bun div. So let's bun run div. It's running on localhost 3000, and it is hello. Let's quickly check this if the web server is running correctly. Okay, it is running correctly. What I would like to do now is imagine if this is a deployed endpoint somewhere with authentication and everything. This would be basically your backend for your workflows. So we have one workflow. Maybe we can go and actually build a new workflow, a totally new workflow, just to make the point. We don't need to integrate it with Samantha. So I will just keep the workflow as a click trigger to make it super simple. And then I will send a request to my laptop. I'll get it back in n8n. That's it. I will just do those 2 steps. So we need to use an HTTP request for this particular use case. And then this endpoint has to come from our ngrok. I have ngrok running in my system, or installed in my system, so we're gonna just reverse proxy that. Oh, it's running already somewhere else in these terminals. I have a license that allows me only to run one ngrok instance. So we also closed the project that we had running. Maybe I have it somewhere else on these terminals. I'll just close them down. So the ngrok, for those of you who do not know what's ngrok, it's basically a reverse proxy company. It's a company that provides reverse proxy software. Right? When you run bun run div, it locally runs your system, and then when you run ngrok, and then it basically opens a reverse proxy. And that means that this is a URL that can be accessed from around the world. So we put this here and we test it out, and we should see what's the problem here. Is a 404. Yeah, definitely, because we need to put the endpoint /hello. If we test, now you can see that this hello world is coming from inside my code that is sitting inside my computer. Now this is pure Node.js logic, Node.js code. You can do anything you want in this workflow. And it's just one HTTP request away from this being integrated in your workflow. So if you see it from that perspective, it's a very, very strong platform. n8n is not a no-code, low-code platform only, although it is a very good no-code, low-code platform. But n8n is an orchestration layer. It's a backend workflow management tool, or it's a backend development tool, I would say. Spinning off an API with n8n will take you 2 minutes. Spinning off and hosting it in a scalable way that millions of users can access an endpoint, let's say even with tools that are super developer friendly like Firebase or Supabase, will at least take you an hour to run that. Now 2 minutes versus 1 hour, you can imagine